Hello and welcome to A Sense of Centerville in Washington Township, your place for stories about ordinary and extraordinary residents and places in the Centerville and Washington Township area. I'm Susan from Centerville-Washington History, and I look forward to hearing your story. Today, my guest is Kristen Marks from the Centerville-Washington Park District. Kristen Marks is the executive director for the Centerville-Washington Park District. She has been with the Park District since 2002, where she began as the park's naturalist. In addition, she was the president of the Ohio Park and Recreation Association and a member of the Centerville Noon Optimist Club. Founded in 1959 as the Washington Township Park District, the Centerville-Washington Park District now operates 8 community parks, 9 nature parks, and 34 neighborhood parks. In addition to maintaining the parks, the Park District also offers outdoor recreational programming for the community. Their primary focus is to connect residents with the outdoors and the natural environment. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Thanks for asking.
I am so excited to have you here because, when I talk to people that come into the community, the thing that really sells people in our community is the Park District. We are so fortunate to have all these lovely parks.
Yeah, I love hearing that too, that, that's part of a decision to come here, because I know I'm biased because I work at the Park District, but I really do think it makes our community exceptional.
Right. Yeah. Yes, definitely. So I told you I would go with the questions, but I have a question that I wanted to ask you is what brought you to these parks?
Well, I was born and raised in Michigan, and after graduating from Michigan State, I did not have a job lined up, but I knew I wanted to do something in environmental education and ended up with an internship at Glen Helen. So that's in Yellow Springs, and if you've been there, it's just a great place, and got to do a lot with students there, and searched throughout my internship for my next gig, and I ended up as the seasonal naturalist at the Park District here in Centerville, and their full-time naturalist had left, and I remember just, I hope they take me on full-time. I just had grown to love the programs very quickly, and, just could tell it was a great organization. So the rest is history, and I'm the reason we moved to Ohio. My husband and I joke about it, but we love it here.
Yeah. Well, I met you back when you were just starting out. And I love Glen Helen. That's a beautiful facility if people haven't been to that one as well. But we're talking about Centerville-Washington Park District. So let's do that. Let's share a little bit about the history of the parks in the Centerville-Washington Township area.
Yeah. So you helped me brush up on my history a bit. I knew some, but then I dug into it. And the first park was not even a Park District park. It was obtained before the Park District was founded, and that's Activity Center Park. And that was obtained through private donations by concerned citizens who really wanted to turn that into parkland. And at that time, this was in the early 50s, you could only have one park per township, state law, which is hard to fathom now because a township is 6 square miles, only one park. But at the time, it was rural, and the perceived value of open space was quite different. You had open space everywhere. So that was really the first park in the community, and then it kind of grew from there. The water line, the county extended the water line into Centerville, and so from there, that made the community really ripe for development, which made a few citizens a little nervous about how fast that was going to happen. One of those people was Bill Yack, among other concerned citizens, and so they started working to change zoning regulations. So as neighborhoods would pop up, there would be regulations to preserve open space within that community, or shave off, a piece of each lot, and whatever was left over, that's that parkland dedication, or it's also called open space transfer. So a lot of our 34 neighborhood parks were obtained through open space transfer. But the Park District was officially founded in 1959, and the first park that the Park District obtained through open space transfer was Concept Park in 1963. So that's kind of how it all began. But then by the 1970s, I believe we had 20 parks by then. Parks like Oak Creek South and Iron Horse, and some of our other neighborhood parks were part of that list. And then in the 1980s was when we hired our first full-time program staff person, which was Carol Kennard. She's our former director and was with the Park District 35 years, I want to say, but long time. But she started out as in the program department and started lots of programs, and Hidden Meadows Day Camp that we still have today. That was one of her creations. And so, just some fun stories there with how the programs began. And then another highlight was in 1996, we renamed Sugar Valley Park. We renamed that in honor of Bill Yeck, who obviously we call him our Park District founder. So that became Bill Yeck Park that people know today. And and we've continued to add parks, amenities, programming to fit the needs of the community. So that's from the 50s to today.
In a nutshell.
Yeah, in a nutshell.
Okay, so there was a lot of things you said. I kind of going back. So the Activity Center Park, there's actually a plaque there, which I hope that people go and take a look at that, because you've done a lot of recent changes to that with having that's been there for how many years has that plaque been there?
Oh, I don't know when it was placed there, but it's been there a long time. I mean, it predates my time at the Park District for sure. But it explains that history of that group that really worked to make that a park.
Right, and the Bill Yeck Park is a lovely park. It's the place I go.
Oh, good.
It's my go-to park for sure.
Yeah.
And then Carol Kennard, of course, would love to visit with her as well sometime. But we have a video of her when we had our previous the mnemonic intervals. She came on our program, and also we interviewed her about the history of the park.
Yeah,
so
good.
Maybe that's something when we could link and include as well. What has been your primary focus since you've been the executive director?
Yeah, it's really important to me to continue to wow the community, and make sure that they are experiencing those top-notch amenities and programs. So that's, I don't want to become complacent. That's always, something I try to avoid. And we have such an awesome staff that is so innovative. So, just keeping on that trajectory with matching what people have requested and, being responsive and providing that for them. So that's really what I strive for with that.
Yeah, and having the staff has been growing and growing, so that you have opportunities then for more programming, because you have a very robust staff and have a lot of talent.
Yeah, definitely. They do a great job, whether it's programming or operations. Just the skill sets, that they come in with is wonderful. And when I want to say around 2016, we started to go through a program expansion, and that was in response to a community needs assessment we did at the time. And program staff became really creative in terms of, bringing in outside instructors and spreading their reach a little bit through contracted instructors and outside volunteers and things like that, to really put things out there to the community that we couldn't do with just one person.
Like collaborations.
Yeah, that's become really important, that in partnerships,
Yeah, for sure. And I know that we partner for at least one program per year, and that's been fun for us to be able to partner with your wonderful staff.
Yeah,
so
that's
very fun.
We enjoy that.
Yeah. So how do you maintain community support for projects and changes?
Yeah, so I alluded to it, but community surveys are really how we know what our purpose is and where our strategic path should go. So it's important to us every few years to do community surveys, and we'll every several years, so maybe 6-7 years, we'll do a statistically valid needs assessment and put that out there to community to make sure that we're our community surveys and then those more contracted surveys are in alignment with what the community is wanting. And we use that data to drive our budget and what those projects might be that we're going to do in the parks. And maybe we learn about gaps we have in programming that we need to pay attention to. Maybe we need to do more adult fitness because people are asking for that, or there's, not enough things for preschoolers or whatever it might be. So that's really how we know what direction to go in. We don't just come to work and guess. So it's really handy to have that input. It's become really important to us, and even the trends, to make sure that we're still on the right track. And every now and then we get surprised, but that helps us out. In 2016, the big ask was shade and shade structures or more shade trees, and we could have never seen that coming, but people said they wanted that, and so we've concentrated on making, with ash trees being decimated by emerald ash borer, we've really made a concentrated effort to plant more trees and some of those sunnier parks, make sure they have shade structures around the playgrounds and that sort of thing. So you never know what's going to come up in a survey that's going to take you down a path you didn't see coming, but it's what the residents are asking for. So
no, that's so useful. And, I've often thought that is, what's the point unless you're going to answer the needs of the people that are going to be enjoying the parks.
Right. I know there's that saying, if you build it, they will come, but I don't think that's necessarily true in parks and recreation. You should really ask first, or else, you probably haven't really done your research to make sure it's really what your community wants. So
exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's wonderful. I actually wanted to go back to what you had previously talked about, and I kind of want to bring the pandemic focus, just because we haven't really talked about that with you, is how did that change your programming, and how did you work around the limitations of the pandemic?
Yeah, that's I love that question. I'm really proud of how the Park District responded during that time. Our vision is to be the outdoor recreation of choice for the community that we serve, and it was never more evident that that's what we were than during COVID. People were flocking to the parks as safe places to gather and work on their mental and physical health. So it was gratifying to see that, even though it was a really stressful time and so many unknowns and how do we do this? Everybody was going through that in some respect in their lives. But the Park District really pivoted quickly from our in-person programming. Right away, we started creating kits. So we can't gather to make these birdhouses for mom in person, but we can make a birdhouse kit that you can take home and paint, and give to mom on Mother's Day. And then that exploded into all sorts of different kits. And all of a sudden our conference room turned into an assembly line of take home kits. And we applied that to summer camp. I still remember when the state came out with their day camp guidelines. We didn't know when we were gonna, or if we could have day camp that summer of 2020. And I think it was May 26th. They came out and we figured out really quickly, okay, we can do this in person, but this is how it has to look. But we had already planned to do virtual camp. So we were using a lot of resources teachers use to communicate with their students outside the classroom. We had set that all up. So we had summer adventures to go and kind of that kit model, but they were going to have virtual counselors who would get on camera with them and take them through all the lessons. My kids did a couple weeks and really enjoyed it. But then we also had these in-person camps and, just following those guidelines. And we took it all very seriously and never had a case of COVID the whole summer. And 600 kids got to do what they needed to do, be outside and be with other people and learn together. So, that was a great time. And then it kept going. So like 2020, we had, the pandemic, but then it had some resurgences here and there. And so we would get back to in-person, but no, we have to go back to, virtual or kits. And, but we just we never gave up. And that's why I was really proud of the staff, just continually innovating or being able to, not get discouraged, but say, well, plan B. So yeah, it was
plan
good.
C.
Or plan C. Yeah, right. So true.
I think we've all become a lot more resilient.
For sure.
Because you do have to pivot, and life is about pivoting.
Yeah.
It's just that's
it was a good reminder, I guess.
Good reminder that we can't control everything,
yes.
even though we would like to.
For sure.
Okay. My children aren't little anymore, but I have noticed there are more inclusive playgrounds and the trails have more ease of mobility. Can you discuss the importance of that in our community?
Yeah, I'll address the latter part of that first. Going back to our surveys, and I hope I don't harp on that too much. It's just such a big part of what we do. But the thing that continually comes out highest on our surveys are paved paths and hiking trails. People want more of them, or they want them maintained for use. So we've really concentrated our efforts there and have added perimeter paved paths to our community parks to give people places to access. Pavement is obviously the most accessible. And then we've looked at our hiking paths and how we can maintain those for different, they're called classes of use. So, you could have a trail like the Purple Trail at Billiac that's more of that fine gravel surface that dries off quickly and it's a little flatter. You're not crossing creeks. It's pretty accessible, not pavement, but pretty good. And then you'll have all the way down to your single track trail where you're, kind of having more of a backwoods experience. So we try to have that range. So we're covering all sorts of different diverse needs in the community with our trails. And then we've also started to add some of that paved paths leading right to our playgrounds, so people aren't trying to schlep a stroller through the grass, or maybe you are using a wheelchair and you need that accessibility. So we've tried to be more aware of that and do those sorts of things. And then with our playgrounds themselves, we've learned a lot more about inclusive play and how all different types of needs and abilities can play together in one place. You don't have to, have a special place just for this group or this group. So having those inclusive play spaces has been important to the community, again, going back to our surveys. So we've worked with playground manufacturers to create those, whether it's the accessible surface or, this certain play feature that is low to the ground, or maybe it's good for those who need like a sensory break and they can go inside the cozy dome and have a moment, or all the way up to very active play and, tall slides and that sort of thing. So we've been fortunate to have grant funding and donations that have helped make a lot of those spaces possible in recent years. I'm thinking of Schoolhouse Park and Maze Park and Yankee Park most recently. So just kind of switching over to that. We still have a couple community parks that have more of the older style playground with the mulch and that sort of thing, but they're on the list and we'll eventually get to them. But lots of options for the community. So
yeah. Oh, I love it. Yeah. I love that Purple Trail. That's my favorite one.
Yeah, because that's a great one.
Because you're not going to get your feet muddy.
Yeah.
If you're going to go for a walk.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, and it's lovely. If it's been rainy, you can still take a nice little walk.
Yeah, and that was the whole point. Just a lot of our trails would get before we incorporated the Grant Park Master Plan, a lot of the trails are in the floodplain, or they went through your favorite part of the park, but they weren't necessarily thought out in terms of where they were in the terrain line. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we tried to fix some of that and just make it more of a year-round, weekly park experience. Even if there's been a big rainfall, you can still get out there. So
I do. I love it. Okay. So how does the Park District promote sustainability in the community?
Yeah, sustainability is such a broad topic. So for us, it's been really important to partner. We have those things that we're really good at, but other things we don't necessarily specialize in. One event I'm thinking of is our styrofoam recycling event. We started that actually during the pandemic. It was a contactless way to drop off styrofoam to keep it out of the landfill. You really can't recycle styrofoam in your usual waste stream. It takes a special place to drop it off. So we partnered with the City of Centerville and Montgomery County Environmental Services and Eco Development, a private company that actually recycles the styrofoam. And so that's been a great partnership and a great environmental program for the entire community. I think we collected 8,000 pounds of styrofoam last year. That was double from the 2022 number. So people have the word's out that, you can save it up for a year and bring it in January and we'll get it recycled. But so that's been a good one. Other things that we try to do to promote, keeping things out of the landfill. We do battery recycling. Obviously, there's a lot of chemicals in batteries, so it's nice to be able to recycle those. And then we do the Christmas light recycling every year. So those have become staples, but we're trying to learn new things about like composting. And one of our large special events that we're doing this summer, well, we do it every year, but it's called Big Backyard Party. But this year, it's going to be zero waste. So we're going to have recycling and composting stations, and we're working with the vendors to, whatever they hand out in terms of utensils or, food plates and things like that, or other vendors, it would be a little greener, and that way it can be recycled or composted. So we're looking forward to that, just educating people in that way, and having less garbage bags at the end of the event. So that's something else we're doing. And then there's other things we do with we have a new teen program that it's growing, and it's called Conservation Crew, and they do all sorts of cool projects for the environment or for sustainability. They created I don't know if you've heard of eco bricks, but I learned about them. I did not know what they were. So they're like a plastic juice bottle, if you think of cranberry juice and the type of bottle that might come in. You take that, and any single-use plastic that you're using, like a wrapper or, a bag you put your produce in, you would stuff it in this bottle until it's really densely packed. And then at that point, it's an eco brick. And so this Conservation Crew teens had been collecting or making their own eco bricks. And so with that, you can build different structures and things. And so we did a demo kind of project out in front of the Park District headquarters, and it's a eco brick planter, and we have this whole time-lapse video of the teens putting it together, and just them figuring out the measurements and how needs to be secured. And so it's really an all-around good project, good teamwork, but also a way to keep plastic out of the landfill and do something with it. So, but they do other projects too. They currently have an amphibian camera trap survey that they have out in Billiac Park. And so they're basically surveying for different amphibians and seeing what's out there in the park, and they check on it, and it takes a good picture of them so we know what's out there. And then, other citizen science things like our butterfly surveys and our nest box monitoring program. I could go on, but it's a lot of little things, and some of it's great to partner on, and some of it's great to have those teens or volunteers that can help you just spread out and get more of it done. So.
Yeah, I love that. That's getting those young people excited and interested in protecting the environment.
Yeah.
Which I really, it's a soft place in my heart. So I'm really glad that that's part of the Park District right now.
Yeah, and it's hard to attract teens. Once they get to a certain age, if they're really involved with sports, they kind of end up, spending more time at the school or whatever it might be for their school sports or dance or, So to have this group be so involved and so excited is really gratifying, because it's been hard to find just the right thing for this age group. So
yeah, I noticed that too. What's coming up with the parks? What are the big things?
Yeah, it's a busy time of year. Obviously, everybody's busy, but the Park District right now, we're in our second week of summer camp, so we have about 1,800 camp registrations, so about 250 campers a week that are coming, and so that's a big one, and really fun. The halls are buzzing with all the counselors and summer staff, and it gets loud and crazy, but it keeps us all young. So I love summer at the Park District. So we have that going on, and lots of great special events coming up, movie night in the park and neighborhood yoga, and then Big Backyard Party. I already mentioned that one, but that's going to be coming up soon. So some of those larger events we're really looking forward to. In terms of projects, we're wrapping up our restoration of the bank barn at Grant Park at the Nature Nook entrance or the McEwen entrance. So we were able to remove the northern addition of the barn, and where that will be a picnic area. And then we've restored or fortified the bank barn, and I don't want to toot my own horn, but I just can't even believe how good it looks over there. I should say our own horn, but it looks so great on that site, and the fresh coat of paint is just what it needed. And once that picnic area is in, I just think it's going to be a beautiful spot to look over the meadow and enjoy that view, but also be next to the historic barn. So that's going really well. And then coming up at the end of the summer, once the spray ground closes, we originally put the spray ground in 2006. It's hard to believe it's been that long, and that was our first and only spray ground. So hard to know the lifespan of a spray ground, but now we know it's about 17 years. So we are going to be doing a renovation of the spray ground. It's still a really important amenity to the community. It is a free water play area for the community, and we get about 30,000 visitors every summer. So like I said, it is an important place, and we want to keep it maintained to the community standards. So once that closes down, we will be going through a renovation, and a lot of the renovation will be some of the things you can't see, the mechanical features, but then we will be adding new spray features, and I like to call it a refresh. It'll just be fresh features and new coats of paint, and just everything will be a little shined up and ready to go for summer 2024. So that's a big one. At Iron Horse Park, I had mentioned paved perimeter paths, but we have 8 community parks, and Iron Horse is the last park that we need to put a perimeter path around. I was looking through notes from long ago, and I guess one of the levy goals in 2004 was to have a perimeter path in every community park, which I didn't know, back then that was a goal. And so here in 2023, we'll have all 8 community parks will have a walking path hiker biker path around them. So we'll be wrapping that up in July. That should be done, so people can enjoy that park in a new way.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love it that we're creating a more fit community.
Yeah.
As we have more ways for people to get around and participate with the outdoors.
Yeah, definitely. That's harping on the survey, but that's one of the biggest asks is adult fitness and wellness opportunities. So they can be active, where you sign up for a program with us, but they can also be passive, where you can go to your nearest park and find a way to get out there and be active. So it's a good combo.
I want to find out, where are your favorite places in the parks?
Oh, my favorite? Well, you mentioned yours is Billiac. That's one of my favorite parks. Just probably nostalgic because, back when I was a naturalist, I did a lot of exploration there with summer campers and program participants and night hikes and things like that. So that's definitely, close to my heart, that park, just exploring it. It's a real gem. And I would lead programs there, and people would say, I've lived here 30 years and I never knew this was here. It's just nestled in there right in the neighborhood, and just really awesome that we have that right here in the suburbs. So that's one of my favorites. I really love Hithergreen Park and what that has become and the story behind that park. That's our newest neighborhood park. Many people remember Hithergreen Senior Center or Hithergreen Center, when that was moved over to the Recplex. It was tough to decide what was going to happen with that piece of property, but the neighbors knew what they wanted and really made that happen. And then we were able to purchase that property with grant funding. And obviously now it's got a walking path and a playground and a nature path. And so that's one of my favorites, just because you don't often get to create a park from start to finish. Quite like that. So that's become one of my favorite. It turned out really, really great. And I think the park neighbors love it too. So
I'm sure they do.
Yeah. So that's another one. And there's all sorts of reasons I like each park. Like, I could talk about little obscure neighborhood parks like Forest Walk. And I know that one has the best pawpaws in the fall. And I always used to have to collect them for the environmental management class, because they would do a program on wild edibles. And that's one of our unique wild edibles right here in Southwest Ohio. So I would always have to shake the trees and get the pawpaws to fall, and then take them into the students to show them, what's a pawpaw. So That's a fun one too.
Yeah, I tasted my first pawpaw last year, and I thought it was interesting.
It's interesting. That's a perfect word for it. Yeah, it's if you needed something and you're out in the wild, you would eat it. I don't know if you'd seek it out, but
some people love them.
Yeah, some people do. I know, and you have to eat them at the right ripeness. But yeah, they're like a cross between an avocado and a banana. I don't know.
With pits.
And big seeds.
Yeah. Big seeds, but it looks very tropical. So
it's really neat.
Yeah, I waited a lot of years before I finally got, because you know, a lot of people will pick them up and you don't, they're not available like when you go and look for them.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, and the wildlife obviously benefit from it as a food source. But that's. Yeah.
I don't know if you're prepared to talk about how the Smith House entrance came into as part of the Billiac Park. Maybe talking about how that became part of the Billiac Park.
Yeah. I can touch on that. Victor and Mary Jane Smith had a good relationship with Billiac, and they'd been a park neighbor for many, many years, just the way the boundaries of Billiac abutted that. And it's hard when I'm talking about the person Billiac and then the park Billiac. But the person Billiac, he had talked to Victor Smith about would you ever consider selling your property to the park district to expand this wonderful green space, in the community. And so the park district ended up having the first right of refusal when it came time to sell that property. So when the park district was approached, they were ready to make the purchase, and then that added 30 acres to the park. So that was a great park expansion. It gave us an opportunity to really put a front door on Billiac. Before, we have the Rooks Mill entrance right there nestled in the neighborhood. It's on-street parking. And then we have the Wilmington Pike entrance, and that's technically Greene County, and it was a little bit limited in space availability. So to have the Smith House and be able to really give that arrival experience that we didn't have before has made a big difference, and has allowed us to just enhance the amenities in that park and enhance access to trails. So,
and having that new shelter there is a lovely thing to add. I see people sitting there eating lunch sometimes.
I really like how that turned out. And I brought my kids to camp the first week, and I guess we hadn't gone to that entrance for a while, and they said, "Whoa, when did this get here?" And they were really excited about it and liked the look of it. But we've had a lot of compliments, and people like those gathering places, so we're happy to provide it. And that park is so close to Forest Field Park, which is obviously a really busy area because people love that playground and tennis and the walking paths and all those sorts of things. So it does give people an alternative place to maybe have a picnic or a quiet spot if they don't want to be right next to the playground. So
that's true, because the other one is right next to the playground, and the one at the Smith House is closer to the walking.
Get right on the trails. Yeah.
How about Grant Park? Can we talk about that one for a little bit? Because it's changed. It also is changing and evolving.
Yeah. So the biggest recent changes at Grant Park are. Well, from an invasive species standpoint, I can talk about how we've removed a lot of honeysuckle at that park. And, and I know a lot of people like the honeysuckle for hedges and things like that. But in a natural park setting, we have made efforts to reduce it just because it impacts the wildlife diversity that we naturally have here and that we should be really proud of and try to highlight. So we've tried to clear a lot of that out to, take advantage of that seed bed that's just waiting to bloom with native wildflowers. So that's been really great. It has changed the look, and I don't know what you would call that, but the way you can see through the park, it's just different. We've gotten a lot of compliments on that. So that's something we've tried to do. And then at the McEwen entrance, I mentioned the barn restoration, but we did some entrance improvements over there. I had mentioned creating a front door at Bilyak. We wanted to do the same thing at Grant, and we've had the Kennard Nature Nook since 2006, and we've run programs out of there since then. But the parking has always been very limited. If you've ever been there for a larger event, you're kind of parking up near the barn, or just getting kind of parked in there. So we knew it was a need. So we expanded the parking lot there, and then partnered with Centerville Rotary to create a memorial trailhead area. They've for a long time have had a Rotary memorial at Grant Park, and it was kind of off.
Hidden with
it
the
was
trees.
hidden, yeah. And so we've been able to bring that out and help it shine a little bit more and be more visible, give it a real center focal point. And then from that plaza, you can now walk a paved trail around the meadow. And that's, again, just another accessibility piece, giving people access to nature who may have limitations with their mobility, or maybe they're in that stroller phase of life, or, whatever it might be, or little legs can't walk as far. So that's been a great addition. And the meadow's reestablishing itself after that construction phase. So that's been good. We do have a master plan for Grant Park, and that was driven by community input, which was all during the pandemic. We had lots of people participate over Zoom and respond to the survey, and that guided that report and, what we really hope to achieve in that park via that public input. So that's our next focus. We're wrapping up the master plan at Bilyak, and the first thing we've done at Grant really is that McEwen entrance and that arrival experience, and then we'll branch out from there to the trails and the wayfinding and some of those other things that we've had success with at Bilyak.
Tell me, wayfinding, is that the poles that tell you where to go? Okay.
Yeah. So we wrapped up that project at Bilyak.
And it's beautiful. I love it.
Oh, good. Yeah, I hope it's helpful.
I've gotten lost.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we've done some rescues where, we'll just come to you because I don't know how to explain this.
I've gotten lost at Grant Park too.
Yeah, so we know it's been needed for a while now, and we take for granted that when we're out there, we just know where to go, and shouldn't assume that everyone else does too. So it was quite the process. I didn't think it would be as involved as it was, but it's so subjective. And, you have a team of people working on where the signs should be and what they should say. And, it just becomes quite the process. But the team worked really hard on it. And it's not without small flaws, but, it's 300 times better than it was. That's been great. And, when you arrive, you kind of know what trail you want to take and where it's going to lead you, and you'll find things along the way to keep you on track, which is the main objective there. And so we want to have that same type of wayfinding system at Grant Park once we get some of those trails rerouted and more sustainably laid out. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to cutting down the honeysuckle, and was it the garlic mustard? That's also a process in the spring to kind of pull that up. There's the garlic mustard challenge, which I participated the very first time this year.
Nice.
I did, and it was funny as I was walking along. People would go, "What are you doing?" I'm curious why somebody is weeding. Was I doing anything wrong? But and then they would always say, "Thank you, thank you for doing that. Thank you for helping in the parks." So first of all, from that, I wanted to talk about how much more diversity of the wildflowers I saw this year than I had previously. And I don't know if it's just that I was out at a different time, but because of that honeysuckle was pulled, we're allowing for more wildflowers.
Yeah, that's really the idea behind it. Garlic mustard is really prolific. It just spreads. It's so fun to pull because it comes right out of the ground. You don't feel like you left the roots behind like you do when you're pulling like a dandelion in your yard or something. So yeah, it's easy to pull, but it's everywhere. And so you can fill a bag pretty quickly. But yeah, the chemicals the roots release keep anything, almost like walnut trees will do this too, but it really doesn't allow things to grow well around it. So that's why you see it be spread so much and become so prolific, because it's kind of keeping other things down, if you will. So we have started the pull your weight challenge.
Okay.
To get the garlic mustard out. And I should have brought how many bags we collected, but it was north of 300 bags this year, and I forget how many pounds that was, but it was the most we've ever had pulled by volunteers during the Pull Your Weight Challenge. So that was great that so many people got out there and kept pulling it out, because it will, like you said, it will. You should start to see those natives come back, and they're in the seed bed. They just need the sunlight and, that permission, if you will, to grow. And, we all take vacations, and you go out west and you see the mountain wildflowers or an antelope, or I don't know, just, you go out, you enjoy that different unique attributes of some of these other destinations. And Ohio and this area of Southwest Ohio has that, and we're so lucky we get to be part of creating that for right here in, suburban Dayton. So it is an important part of what we do. And on our surveys, I think it's 87% say that they want us to conserve habitats and ecosystems. So, that's
what you're doing.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Yeah. And I'll go back and share that they were, is it compostable bags?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that the bags could be composted.
Yeah. So I know you think you could just pile up the garlic mustard and let it compost, but then it'll go to seed and spread. So you have to bag it and get it out of there. But yeah, at least when it's, going to the landfill, it's in a compostable bag. I don't know, just trying to just reduce the impact, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting that in the garlic mustard challenge there was recipes. They're like,
it's edible.
These are actually things you can take.
Yeah.
And then go ahead and eat those because they are edible. After, of course, we get our full weight so that we, win the which we didn't win the challenge, but it was still fun to participate.
Yeah, we have a particular team that is super competitive, and they try to win every year. But I mean, it helps the whole community. I need to get on their team, maybe. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. But every little bit helps. So yeah.
We've got a few more minutes. I'd love for you to talk about volunteers.
Oh yeah, that's I'm happy to do that. We have volunteer opportunities in all sorts of capacities, whether it's helping with programs. We have trail ambassadors that will, maybe their closest park is Billiac Park, and they'll go out and be the eyes that we can't be. We try to be out in the parks as much as we can, but there's no possible way to see it all. So the trail ambassadors will tell us, there's a tree down on the yellow trail and you can't get by, and so that'll help us respond quicker. And we have positions for both youth, starting at age 14, all the way up into adulthood. And it can be anything from helping at our day camps. It can be monitoring nest boxes for our cavity nesters like bluebirds and tree swallows and those birds that, need a little habitat boost. Butterfly surveys. We have volunteers that help us look for different butterfly species this time of year and just keep track of what's out there. And that data actually gets sent to a national organization, so we are keeping track of what we have around here. But yeah, all sorts of opportunities, and we have a volunteer coordinator on staff that can find a good fit for someone who might be interested in being out in the parks and helping in different ways. So
they just have to call up and
or we have information on our website too, and you can even fill out the application there and go from there. But yes, always welcome to call or email and ask any questions.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, I have loved visiting with you. In fact, that's how we first met, is I was a volunteer.
Yeah.
And I've taken a break, but I would love to get back to volunteering. So hopefully you'll see more from me. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here today and to share some of the history and also some of the current history that we will preserve for later generations.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being here today. And also thank you to MVCC for helping to produce this podcast. If you have an interesting story about Centerville and Washington Township, please contact Centerville Washington History. Please also come visit our museums Tuesday through Friday, 12 o'clock to 4 p.m. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and watch for upcoming events posted on our website, CentervilleWashingtonHistory.org. Thank you and goodbye.